meeting will come to order in compliance with the sunshine laws of the state of New Jersey. Notice of the meeting, date, time, date, location has been sent to the record. Richmond News, Wyckoff Library, Township Clerk, and posted on the district website. The meeting will come to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Borbiello?
Here.
Mr. Sergi is absent. Dr. Green?
Here.
Mr. McHugh?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Nico?
Here.
Mr. Francis?
I am here. And thank you for clearing our ears, Mrs. Sabat. And if you don't mind, would you lead us all in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open up the floor to the public. This is a initial budget hearing. Not budget hearing. This is a meeting to pass the proposed budget, to send it so that we can get it back and then have a budget hearing. So we'll open up the floor. If anybody has any, if you gentlemen have any comments or concerns about the budget, feel free to address the board. You can stay where you are, come up to the microphone, whatever is easier for you. Okay. Then we'll go into reports. Superintendent's report.
Hello, I will save the traditional monthly report for our April meeting. But for this special meeting, I just wanted to point out a couple of items on the agenda in addition to the tentative budget, and then just make a couple of comments about the budget before Mrs. Salvati gives her report. So on the agenda tonight, one of the items is the daily substitute rate, raising that from 125 to 140, effective April 1st. I just wanted to remind the board that during COVID, we had brought our 125 rate up to 200 as a temporary measure, only through March 31st. So as of April 1st, the rate drops back to the 125. And because we are still seeing some absences due to COVID, and we want to make sure we keep our substitute pool, I'm recommending here an increase from that 125 to 140 for the remainder of the year, which would also be what we'd be planning for next year, to keep the rate at 140. And the other items on the agenda, one is the website vendor called Aptigee, and that's a recommendation to move over from the school messenger vendor that we use now. Aptigee offers a very nice appearance in website and good, easy to use, user-friendly, but it also offers an app for parents. So they'd be able to get the Wyckoff School District app, and then they could subscribe on the app to their child's teacher, to their child's school, etc., and get their updates. Very much looks like social media, but it's all within an app. And they can see things like the lunch menu at Eisenhower, and calendar events, and also classroom happenings. So that's on the agenda here. And then also there is Trip Link, which is a pilot at no cost to the district of a field trip app, so that students and parents, parent chaperones and teachers can all be on the same app and be communicating when the class goes to Philadelphia. They could be messaging teachers and students all within a private and closed app. It's actually very impressive, and it was designed and created by one of our teachers here at the middle school, Mrs. Layla Mulkey, and her husband designed the app, and we met with them and they offered us a pilot for this year, so we're very excited about that. So that's listed here at no cost. And just shifting gears over to the tentative budget, just a couple of comments that I wanted to make from an educational perspective for the 22-23 tentative budget. The proposed budget contains continuation of our full-day kindergarten, which has been quite successful this year, and a continuation of all of our programs at all 5 schools, including exploratory and cycle electives at the middle school, media and technology classes at the elementary school. What we did consider and implement an increase in is physical education minutes at the elementary school, just coming out of COVID and also in compliance with the New Jersey learning standards, making sure that we have additional increased minutes. So that is an increase of staff as well for physical education. And then also a consideration of the increasing costs in custodial and transportation were taken into account in creation of the tentative budget. Mrs. Salvati will talk more about that, and I want to thank her and her team for all the work that they've done up to this point. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Dr. Postma. Any question? Go ahead.
Dr. Postma, when would the app actively go live, do you think?
So we're looking to do, the question was about the new website, Aptigee, and if adopted tonight, when would it go live? We're looking at late spring so that we can have a little overlap while we still are using the other vendor, so possibly after spring break.
Any other questions? Great, thank you, Dr. Postma. Mrs. Salvati, tonight, this is your big night. Well, the budget hearing is your real big night, so this is the Golden Globes for you.
Golden Globes, okay.
Now, I would say that the budget hearing is the Oscars, but we won't say the Oscars anymore. We'll figure out something.
Golden Globes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So on the agenda is the tentative budget for 22-23 for submission to the county superintendent. And it's called tentative because we don't put it out for the board's full approval until after it is approved by the county superintendent, who ensures that it's in compliance with all budgetary rules and regulations and seems reasonable in all aspects. We had many challenges in putting together this budget, specifically in the area of custodial costs, special ed services costs, and transportation. So the budget being submitted reflects an increase in operating costs of 2.88%. The net tax increase, inclusive of debt service, is 1.85. So we'll talk more about that at the public hearing, but the net for 2022 is 1.85%. It translates into a $35.25 increase for the average assessed home of $801,100, or $4.35 for every 100,000 of assessed value. So those are the financial specifics regarding the budget. But I want to talk about the resolution language a bit. So we make reference to an enrollment adjustment in Chapter 44, and I just want to give the board the history behind that. So 2 years ago, the state collaborated with the NJEA, and they created a new health plan called the Educator's Health Plan, and they put it in place January 1st, 2021. And it came with a lower premium cost, but a much lower contribution by employees as a percentage. The percentage they were being asked to pay would be based on their salary rather than cost of premium. And this new plan became known as Chapter 44. So up until that time, employee contributions were based on the cost of the premiums, which we refer to as Chapter 78. So with Chapter 78, employee contributions kept pace with the increase in premiums every year. So as the costs increased, so did the employee costs. So this new plan now shifted more of the cost burden from the employee to the district. It was believed that the new plan would be so cost effective that the lower premiums would result in an overall lower cost and therefore be beneficial to both taxpayers and employees. And the legislators said, all right, we'll try it out for 2 years and we'll evaluate how much money the school districts can save. And if savings did occur, it would go back to the taxpayers by imposing a permanent reduction to their tax levy. So last year it was turned over to the Department of Ed to figure out the savings. And the folks at the DOE really didn't know how to go about doing that, so they created their own calculation based on estimates and averages. And the state's calculations were incorrect, very far from actual. So last month, we were told that our tax levy was being reduced by $500,000 based on the calculation done by the Department of Education. We immediately began an appeal to prove that the district did not save money with this new health plan, and second, that the savings we had came about as a result of other changes, good economic decisions that we made, not from Chapter 44. So our numbers proved that this new program actually cost the district $21,000 more in the first 6 months of its inception, and that amount will grow as time goes on. And we proved that our calculations were correct by providing detailed analysis to the department head substantiating our numbers. So while all of this is going on, we still had to prepare a budget for submission. And we were fortunate that in the same year that they reduced our tax levy cap, they also recognized the increase in enrollment that we had over the past 3 years, and they gave us an automatic enrollment adjustment, which raises our tax cap. I know it's a lot of information, but it all plays into the resolution. So basically, we were able to offset the reduction with the enrollment adjustment and did not have to reduce our budget as other districts had to do. There's about 40 districts in Bergen County that filed appeals. And many of them that didn't have the enrollment adjustment or any kind of bad cap, they saw a reduction in the tax levy and it cuts to their budget as a result. So even though we were made whole, we appealed the adjustment to the DOE just on the principle of it. The state's calculation of savings was incorrect, and we wanted the tax levy corrected for the record. So good news, just this afternoon, the state acknowledged that they made a mistake and accepted our documentation, and the tax levy adjustment has been reduced to 0 and our cap levy is being restored to its full amount. So it will take them a few days to make the change in the state's budget software. So we have to submit the budget with the language as it is, reflecting the use of the enrollment adjustment. But by the time we come back to this public hearing in April, that language should be gone, and what you'll see is the enrollment adjustment for $60,000 in additional costs. I know it was a lot of information, but I think it was important that you know the history behind it. And we took it serious. This is a permanent adjustment, reduction in your tax levy. Other districts that didn't file this appeal, I don't know, there's consequences down the road. You lose 2% on that amount for every year going forward. So it was important that we correct it on principle and go on, have our record corrected. So one other item I just want to point out is the district did have savings in healthcare, but that was good to good economic decisions that we made. We changed our prescription plan from private to the state plan. We negotiated a change. The negotiating committee negotiated a change in the base plan from Direct 10 to Direct 15. And there were also reductions in premium costs from the state for several years in a row. So as a result of these savings, this district was proactive and we returned the savings to the taxpayers with a reduction in school taxes last year. Not many districts can say that, nor have they done that. And we have been and will continue to be mindful of the taxpayers and our planning and the development of our school budgets.
Thank you, Mrs. Silva. Phenomenal work done by you and your office for standing up and appealing that decision. So we all appreciate that. And I agree with you. Any reduction, the effects are 5, 10, 15 years down the road are just exponential. So, on behalf of the board and on behalf of the council, thank you for that. Really, really appreciate the hard work you put into this. And the good budget. I mean, the fiscal restraint that we show, I think, is phenomenal, and we keep up our facilities, and we have a really good program, and that's really thanks to you. We can have the best teachers and best administrators in our buildings, but if we can't fund them, it's not a good educational program. So thank you, Mrs. Sabat.
And one more thing about the enrollment adjustment, so not having to use it to balance this budget, it's there for us to use in the 2 subsequent years after 23, 24. So if we need to recognize or do any, have any increases in the budget, it's there for us to use because the state is recognizing that we've gone up, our enrollment has gone up over 5% just in the last 2 years.
Any board members have any questions or concerns? Thank you.
I just would like to say, we could be jovial about it and say that the Emmy award goes to Pat Salvati, but in all seriousness, I've been on the board for several years now, and I've been on the finance committee for several years since my inception on the board. Pat, you've been with the district, I believe, 5 years. You truly are an unsung hero in this district. You're an extraordinary business administrator. Wyckoff is so fortunate to have you as our BA. You are so in tune with what the district needs. Every finance, every dollar decision that we make, and you go back and you fight for every dollar with the state, and you are so on top of it. And our students, every single one of them, our community members, our taxpayers, are fortunate to have you behind us because of you, we are able to accomplish what we're able to accomplish. And I think you deserve a standing ovation, quite frankly, for everything that you do for our district. And you're not front and center, you're not in the buildings, but you are silently behind in the board office doing extraordinary work. And you should be celebrated by every single person in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. I have great staff, I do, that assist, and I have to give credit to Jessica Viola, my assistant, who worked through this appeal process of preparing all the spreadsheets with me. So it really was the two of us together, so I really have to recognize her work. But thank you very much.
You know, and that's an example of what you guys took this appeal process proactively, and you went through, and it's not easy to go through the records and to demonstrate and fight back and say, you know, what was the result of the savings, and that it wasn't because of the chapter 44, and that it was real savings that the district was proactive about. And you took that time line by line, and not many districts did that in Bergen County, and we did because of you. And we're thankful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to move the consent agenda.
Yes.
Moved by.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion? No? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Barbagallo,
Yes.
Dr. Greenie,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Mika,
Yes.
Mr. Franson.
Yes. Thank you. Now we will go to communication from the public. I'd like to address the board at this time. I ask that you just state your name and feel free to use the microphone.
Tom Madigan from Wyckoff. Based upon last year, I know you don't allow questions in the public on the proposed budget you're doing tonight. So for the April budget presentation, I've had 3 questions given in advance. Just curious, I'm sure you reflected your budget with no information, but I'm just curious as far as the excess surplus from last year, the increase in state aid, and then the expiration of salary obligations for the principal and the staff. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Tom, could you just, so the excess surplus,
So just, I'm sure you'll include it in your presentation, but just.
I can tell you right now it's 650,000 that I'm using in the budget.
Well, I'm not asking a question, because I
Okay.
don't, last year,
Okay.
Mr. Franson
All right.
rejected me asking questions, so I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
And what was the third
And then
item?
the increase in state aid,
Mhm.
the expiration of the salary obligations for the principal and the staff member. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else, would you like to address the board? Okay. No. Does anybody have anything else? There's executive session? No?
I just want to add
This is
something.
all right.
We're going to need another special meeting to award bids for Eisenhower. So the bid opening is Thursday. The attorney needs up to a week to review the bids. So, and we'll need time to advertise. So maybe around April 11th. I mean, it would be truly a 5-minute meeting just to award those bids.
I'll be around, I don't know. First, that's Monday, so I don't know when everybody else has.
Okay.
I'm here, but my kids are.
We could even do it daytime.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I may be away.
Okay.
So we should, Kathy, are you available?
Check.
So Tim, Gina, and Van right now.
I'm here.
Right? Okay.
I can't do it during the day, I'm working, but I can be here at night.
Okay.
Yes, anything is preferred for me.
Can't do it.
I can't do it. I can't come to do it next.
You want to do it at night?
Wait, you said you want to do it next one next?
Yeah, he said evening is preferred for me.
Yes, fine.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll keep you posted, pending the results of the bid opening on Thursday.
Pat, do we have any general sense in terms of the increase in the budget, how we compare it to other districts around us? I know, again, this is preliminary. Are we in the same realm?
Oakland had to cut their budget as a result of Chapter 44, so if they are successful at their appeal, their numbers will be changed. They don't know definitively around the public details, but I believe they're going to be higher than us. They don't know. So not at this point.
Appreciate it. Well then, I guess we'll adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Only because. Yes.